Hello, welcome back. Tostoday here from the United States and my good friend from Australia, IG Infinitely Galactic. I thought tonight we would take a little break from Linux, although we will probably include Linux in this discussion. Talk mainly about Windows 8, specifically Windows 8.1. I know IG has had Windows 8.1, has been using it for a while. I think since last year, if I recall correctly, alongside his various Linux distros. I just picked up less than a month ago my first 8.1 desktop, running it as a dual boot. So I kind of like what I see. I think IG kind of likes what he sees. First of all, IG, how are you?
I'm doing pretty well, thanks. How are you?
Terrific. A little bit of a cold spell here in the States. It's been 30 degrees below normal. It should be about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. It's been down in the 50s, and I don't like it because I can't go swimming. Boo hoo. Anyway,
Wow.
yeah, it. Well, I'll just say it sucks. Putting that aside, let's talk about something that hopefully does not suck that much. Let me get started, IG. I know you have more experience with 8.1 than I do, but let me just get started. Just chime in when you want to. But I bought a desktop, a refurbished desktop. I thought at a good price that has Windows 8.1. I won't go into the whole specs of the desktop. Maybe sometime next week on the weekend I'll post a short review of it. It came with Windows 8.0. And if you recall in the past, I wasn't too what's the word, hateful of Windows 8 as some people were, although I understand for most or for some it was quite a shock coming from, say, Windows XP or Windows 7 to Windows 8, getting used to the GUI, as it were. Totally understood that. It wasn't that much of a shock to me. However, this month I dove into Windows 8 and then 8.1 full time. I had no intention, IG, of upgrading to 8.1, but some of the viewers told me go ahead and do it. It's better. I thought about it. I did. I did run into some hiccups. I'll talk about that later. But overall, 8.1 IG so far has been absolutely flawless. Not a single blue screen of death. Of course, I never noticed that in Windows 8, to be fair. Or I'm sorry, Windows 7, now Windows 8.1, rather. Everything works. I tried some gaming, some intensive gaming, both for Linux and Windows. It seems to work, although I do not have a dedicated graphics card. It's one of those integrated graphics card. Seems to work so far. But overall, IG, my experience with 8.1, it's aside from the hiccups, which I will talk about soon, I must say I call it as I see it. It's been flawless. Now, you've been running it about a year, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Basically ever since it came out, which was, yeah, I think towards the end of last year.
How does it feel to you?
Oh, look, I mean, really, I mean, Windows used to have so many frustrations in it. Whenever you'd pick it up and use it, there'd be little things that would just kind of irk me, and even little things in Windows 7, as great as Windows 7 was. And I guess those irks increased about tenfold when I started running Windows 8, just because of the fact that there were so many little quirky things in the UI and just little things that didn't seem very well thought through. Then, with the advent of the 8.1 update, I think a lot of those got ironed out, and all of a sudden, Windows 8 started to become something that was efficient and that I could work with if I needed to. And to be honest, I don't really use it too much, apart from the odd gaming here and there, and iTunes every now and again. But apart from those things, I don't really use it all that much. But when I do have to use it, I'm not rolling my eyes and wanting to throw my laptop out the window. So
Okay.
it's it's definitely a vast improvement, and I think it's on par now with the efficiency of other Linux distributions, at least the more user-friendly ones. There are certainly distributions out there and operating systems out there that are far lighter on resources, but if you're running on modern hardware, it's up there now as far as usability goes. I think at least with OS 10 and with other Linux distributions, as far as just being a system that'll work, it'll get your job done, and it's not going to. One thing that I've really been surprised about is that it hasn't bogged down over time at all. It's still just as quick as as what it was when I first installed it. So. Yeah, it's definitely solved a lot of the issues that I had with the initial Windows 8 release. And I think for that, it's a fairly non-event kind of OS for me now. It's just kind of like in the background, and I'm mostly focusing on the apps that I'm running. So yeah.
Right. Well, before with Windows 7 dual booting with Ubuntu, I found myself booting more into Ubuntu, less into Windows 7. Not that Windows 7 didn't work, it was pretty much flawless even for that. But I think what it was, I kind of got bored with Windows 7, with the same look. Uh, Not necessarily anything wrong with that, but with Ubuntu, you can download different desktop environments. I had Linux Mint and Kubuntu KD, installed. I would just, of course, log out and log into to the appropriate desktop interface. You can't do that with Windows 7, of course. So I kind of got bored with Windows 7. I think one of the reasons why I do like Windows 8.1 is it is radically different than the previous version of Windows 7, and I've gotten used to it. I mean, the classic traditional start button menu, as it's called, still isn't there, although I believe, IG, that is coming back in a form next year with Windows 9, integrated with the tiles, with the apps. And I think that's probably the right thing to do to make it less of a transitional shock from
Kind
people
of feel
who,
like that's what they should have done to begin with, at
yeah,
least by default for desktops and laptops.
yeah, I
The
mean,
start screen makes sense
yeah,
on a tablet, but
yes.
on a laptop desktop, the default should have been that kind of start menu.
Okay, yeah, I look, when I first looked at Windows 8, if you recall, I thought it looked great. I thought Microsoft was on target. All that's missing is the start button, and they have a winner. They didn't do it. They blew it with that. They blew it with the tablets, not having tablets that were marketable price-wise to the mass. Of course, they tried to market theirs right when Google's tablet was taking off for about $250, and they had nothing to match it. Now they do, but back then they had nothing. So the marketing aspect, they kind of blew it. The start button thing, not having it in there, they kind of blew that. It's coming back. For myself, all is forgiven. Windows 8.1 so far, especially gaming. I'm impressed. I have a quad core. It flies. In fact, IG, it feels faster than Linux, than my Ubuntu Linux. That
Yeah.
that may sound blasphemous, but I call it as I see it. Now, it's not going to be that much faster, especially if you run something lightweight like Ubuntu or Linux Lite. Those are going to be faster. But in terms of Ubuntu with Unity, Windows 8.1 just feels faster. So before I go to what I hate about it, you haven't noticed any major flaws, or gaming is fine, no freeze ups, crashes, none like that. True?
Yeah, I mean, it's been pretty stable for me as well. I haven't had any blue screens of death or anything like that. I think as far as Windows 8.1 as a whole, it's kind of like Microsoft is this massive company that has so many different departments and divisions that they don't always communicate how they should.
Yes.
And so when they do finally launch a product, it's kind of
Right.
like, oh, well, hang on, we weren't ready for that. Or the design team have this great idea, but they can't really communicate it to the people that are actually going to be testing
Right.
it and launching it amongst the masses. And so it's
Yes.
just this big mess. And then usually about a year or a year and a half later, they finally catch up with everyone and finally put out something that makes a bit more coherent sense. Um, that's what I feel like Windows 8.1 was. And hopefully, with Windows 9, Windows 9 will be the Windows 7 that Windows 7 was to Vista,
Yeah.
the version that Windows 8 should have been. That's what I'm hoping. But they're
Okay.
getting very close with 8.1, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. So we can both agree, before I dive into the hiccups, we can both agree Windows 8.1 is markedly better than Windows 8, and it's perfectly fine as an upgrade or an alternative to Windows 7. That would be a fair statement?
Correct.
Okay. Let's go into some of the, some of the things I had to go through. So I had Windows 8.0, and it was fine. But people were saying, "Oh, try this TOS, try 8.1. It's better than this." And I'm like, "Okay, guys, fine." I started downloading all the updates. Of course, you and I know the update process in Windows is not as, how shall we say, not as streamlined as it would be in, say, Ubuntu. You have to download the updates. The computer has to reboot probably several times, and it can take hours. Okay, so I went through the normal upgrade update process. It goes to a reboot or two, and right before it boots into the OS, you have like a little progress meter, 20%, 40%. It got to 99%. Oh, updates fail, reverting to previous updates. I'm like,
Oh dear.
After hours and hours, I'm like, well, maybe it was a corrupt download. I didn't know. So fine, the next day, let me try it again. It did the exact same freaking thing. Now I'm mad. I'm steaming because why can't it tell me at 1%, hey, there's something wrong, please check it? No, let's drag it out for 2 hours, then say, you got a problem. You know what I mean? That's Now I know
Oh
Microsoft doesn't
dear.
do that on purpose, but that's what it felt like. So it reverted back. Of course, now you have to wait for the revert process, which thank God it wasn't 2 hours. It was, I think, a half hour or less. I didn't stick around. I just left the house. I was steaming, went for a drive just to cool off. But so now I'm back to 8.0. I had to go in and do something either in the registry or in the startup services. I had to enable something or delete. I think it was to enable, so I can't remember. I had to do a search for this little glitch flaw or whatever. Now, to be somewhat fair, I bought a refurbished machine, not brand new out of the box. That may have been part of the issue. I can't prove it either way. But I went into the services or registry or whatever, tried that fix. That worked. Once I did that, everything installed flawlessly, except the apps that I had downloaded previously, of course, don't work at 8.1. I had to re-download them. Of course,
Uh-huh.
if you know what I mean. But of
Yeah,
course,
no, I'm
all right.
following you.
In Windows 8, it says, sorry, you have to repair. Which means take the time, waste half your day, and re-download. Fine. I went through all that. After all that, Windows 8.1 so, does appear to be flawless, but after so much, wash, rinse and repeat, as it were.
Hmm.
So that's where I'm at.
My
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my upgrade process was pretty smooth. But having said that, like I was kind of mentioning before, I don't really do a whole lot on the Windows system, so there isn't really much there's really not much outside the normal. And so I think there was relatively few places that it could stumble, and it didn't really stumble for me. It was a one attempt install, and it installed just fine. So yeah, I mean, I
Okay.
think in place upgrades are always going to be messy, messy, messy.
Yeah.
And even though the Linux world is quite adept now at
Yeah.
running updates and upgrading core parts of the system, with rolling releases and all that kind of thing, it's still something that many people want to see, like a flawless implementation of
Yeah.
an in-place upgrade from, say, Linux Mint 16 to Linux Mint 17. They want to see that where you just pop the disk in
Yeah.
straight from the desktop of what you've already got, and it'll say, "Hey, do you want to upgrade to this one?" And then you say, "Go ahead."
Yeah.
And then it just updates from the CD, and it leaves your install exactly how it was. I reckon that will be something that a
Well,
feature that people really want to see,
yeah.
because of the fact it is kind of available on Windows, but obviously if you've got a complicated
Yeah.
setup, then it's going to take a few stumbles here and there.
Right. Right.
But
Hmm.
having
Yeah.
said all that, it works. It's
Yeah.
functional.
Yeah. Normally with Ubuntu, once a new version is out, I don't go through the normal upgrade process. I just, wipe out everything or first back it up first, of course, what you need and just go through a fresh install. That was and probably still is the preferred way to upgrade the OS rather than, clicking that little box that pops up, hey, there's an upgrade, would you like to upgrade it, then wait 2, 3 hours. And that may not work. If you do a fresh install, assuming that the download is not corrupt, always check the MD5, of course. In the past and now, that seems to be the best way to do a fresh install of any Linux for that matter, if I had to pick a way to do it. Rolling releases, of course, are a different matter. But for the Ubuntu's, Linux Mints, and Zorns, I think a fresh install is probably the way to do it.
That's correct.
Okay, one last thing here. One final hiccup that it's my fault. I knew about it. I totally forgot. I had 8.0, Windows 8.0, and Ubuntu as a dual boot. I upgraded to 8.1. After I did it, I'm like, Oh crap, I forgot it trashes the bootloader. So I could no longer boot into Ubuntu 14.04. Luckily, I had backed up about 90% of what I had. I tried the IG, I tried the fix boot repair or whatever it's called, fix repair boot,
Yep.
something like didn't work. Searching and searching. I said, you know what? I'm just gonna do a fresh install from scratch. I had to do custom partitioning, which I don't normally recommend because for some reason in my system IG, when you go to the install process with the Ubuntu installer, it didn't say, would you like to install this or install alongside Windows 8? I didn't have that option. I don't know why. I did turn off secure boot. However, that option simply was not there. So I had to do, as they say, something else. And I think the way I did it, there's several ways to do this. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the best way in Windows under disk management, I created a free space partition. Once I did that, then I went back into the installer for Ubuntu, then used that free space to install Ubuntu. And that automatically installs the bootloader and everything, and you can do that. When it's done, you have a dual boot process. That's probably the best way I would guess, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Once I did that, everything's fine, but I realized that after I did, I said, oh man, I forgot all about the bootloader. And that being said, so far, of course, I did that, or reinstalled the apps and everything. Both operating systems, by the way, Ubuntu 14.04 and Windows 8.1, appear to be running very nice. Now, gaming's still an issue. I downloaded Alien Arena. I was told to try it, and I do like it, even though I suck at it. I'm a noob to this. I usually play, my Xbox 360. It would not work in Ubuntu. I had it downloaded. I think I installed it. I could see it. It would not start. It would not. Nothing happened. I downloaded for Windows. It plays flawlessly. So right now, I think Linux. You and I talked about it. The future is bright for Linux, but it's not there yet. So right now, I have to stick.
Indeed not.
It's not. With Windows, well, I won't talk about how great gaming is in Windows. But that being said, I'm mainly in Windows now for the gaming aspect since I don't quite feel comfortable with it in Linux because hence with at least that game, for whatever reason, it didn't work. Oh, one more thing. Speaking of gaming, I checked and there was a little pop-up. There are drivers, video drivers available as, for my system. Of course, video drivers can be hit and miss, right?
Correct.
So I thought, yeah, I won't dig that up again. You know what I mean. So I thought I'm going to cross my fingers and install I call them the extra drivers. Okay. I installed it, rebooted, it runs better. I'm like, yes, finally, Linux drivers that don't crash the system. Anyway, I forget what model this is and card that is. So if anybody out there has had issues with Linux video drivers and are thinking about buying a new computer, I have the one for you. I don't have all the paperwork in front of me. Maybe this weekend coming up, I will post a quick review and the recommendation of what I bought because Tostoday can finally say that these Linux video drivers are not horse stable. So anyway, on
That's
that note,
quite an achievement. That the
uh,
Linux community deserves a little round of applause for that one. I'm just going to say.
yes, yes. Cheers. I have a can of Pepsi here. Cheers. No, but anyway, it works. Um, so what else do I have? Okay, a couple things before we wrap this up. The For the viewers out there, of course, IG have been doing these podcasts since 2011, over 3 years. Wow, it's been that long. I've decided after much thought and I've had comments and requests in the past. Gee, can some of these talks be available as a download, like either like an MP3 or an OGG file? Thought about it. Of course, the extra time involved, and I thought about maybe I'll do it as a 99-cent download or something like that. Finally, I said, know what, folks, IG and I would not be here without the support of the viewers out there. It's that simple, between the AdSense and the donations and whatnot. we wouldn't be here. So with IG's blessing and myself, we decided uh, I will upload not all of them, just the discussions between myself and IG, the formerly called Tosscasts podcast. I've decided to upload these to the Internet Archive. They are free. You can do what you want with them. Just if you download them or post them on a website, just give credit to myself and IG. It's under Tostoday Tech Talk. TNTT, if you will. I will have a link below in the show notes. So they are there. I think I've got the first six or seven. This will take some time between the Toscast IG and the news and nonsense. Of course, there was some with Spatry, the Linux 8 team. There's over 100. That's too much. I've decided just to do mainly the ones you and I talked about, and I believe that includes number one up to 32 or 33. So this would be actually number 33 or 34, rebranded from Toscast Podcast to Toss Today Tech Talk. So on behalf of myself and IG, I hope you guys enjoy them. They are free to download. A small suggestion, if you like what you hear, consider a small donation of $1 to myself or IG, or both if you can. The donation is not required. It's just a suggestion. They are free on the Internet Archive, and they will be free for myself and IG. Okay, let's see what else. Finally, I've had also requests in the past to do Mac reviews. So I have an Indigo project that has not gone live yet. I'm still tweaking it. I will have a link below in the show notes for that if you want to take a look at that or have any suggestions. There is a funding goal there. A quick outline brief and the funding goal. It'll be a 30-day goal. It's going to be one of those all or nothing. Either it gets funded or it does not. Whatever, if it doesn't get funded, the money gets refunded back. Kind of like what Ubuntu did with their Ubuntu Touch Phone. They couldn't quite reach their goal. All the money gets refunded back to the donator. So for all the people who have been requesting Apple reviews, if you would like to be part of that project, there will be some perks. If I reach the goal, maybe we'll do a hangout together, a podcast together, something else. Maybe IG will get involved with this because he does have an Apple Mac, I believe a laptop, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, correct. Although
Okay.
it's kind of shifting around, but yes.
Okay. All right. So that's what's left for me to do in terms of the total package, as it were. I can do some gaming on this desktop. It is not a gaming desktop, but the games so far appear to be working. So the gaming requests will be coming, as much as I can do them with this low-end machine. Only thing left for me to do is the Apple stuff. And basically, if the project gets funded, I'm going to walk into the local Apple store and say, hey, I need a MacBook or whatever they're called, MacBook, yeah, to do YouTube videos. What you got? Because I will be walking in an Apple store as a newbie, and I will give it to you as I always have. I call it as I see it, both good and bad. And that should be interesting, to say the least. Okay. IG, if you have any announcements or anything else to add, that's it for me.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm going to be continuing with my schedule as per normal, and the translation of that is as per my availability, which I'm still shooting at a video a week. Obviously, I haven't posted one last week, but I'm going to make up with two this week because I'm that sort of guy. And yeah, we're going to be keeping on going with Linux distro reviews, and also I think. Yeah, we're going to look at a few different games on Linux in the near future as well. But yeah, I also like the idea of comparison videos because I've looked at so many Linux distros now. I'm kind of at the point where, at least recently, there's not too much innovation happening in the Linux desktop as far as leaps and bounds being taken. So I thought, well, this comparison idea, like the one that I did between Linux Mint and Netrunner, might be something that I might do more of in the future. But yeah, just very similar to Total OS Today's case. If you guys do want to see me do some Mac stuff, then let me know, and that can be arranged. But for the meantime, we'll stick with the Linux side of things, and because there's always plenty to talk about. But that'll be all from me. So yeah, thank you all to those who listen to this show, and for all of your support over the last 3 years or so. It's been a very interesting journey for both Tostoday and myself. and so we have a lot to be thankful for with you guys and your interaction and your
Yes.
suggestions. It
Yep.
keeps it very interesting. It's probably one of the most rewarding parts of doing
Yes.
YouTube.
Yep.
So thank you very much for listening, and I shall pass the mic back to our host, and he'll take us out.
IG, I cannot have said it any better. Thank you for over 3 years of these discussions. You were the first, and we've clicked, and here we are, and the people seem to enjoy these. So it's been a completely enjoyable experience, along with the other guests that we've had, of course, Spatry and some others. So yeah, we're doing gaming. We IG and I may not be good at it, but if you have any gaming requests, feel free to send a message to myself or IG. If you have Mac requests, I don't have a Mac yet. You may want to forward that to IG if he has the time. I'm sure he'll be happy to take a look at it. But for now, thank you so much for watching and listening for these many years. And as always, we will catch all of you sometime in the future.